before we start adding new things to the game, I want to organize the scene a little bit, the hierarchy, just because we have so many objects here and it's getting a little bit messy. So one quick way of organizing your scene is by using empty game objects and this concept of parent and child objects, right? So let me just quickly demonstrate that. So let's go to game object and click on create empty. And now we have an empty game object. Here, as always, I always reset the position. And I'm going to call this underscore bars or underscore group bars. Group bars. Okay? And the reason why I started with an underscore is because it would just help with sorting. As you can see in the hierarchy, it's sorted alphabetically. So if you have an underscore, it would tend to show up first. And I'm going to select all the bar objects and then drag them into the group bars object. Now you can see that they're all inside this group bars object now. Now you can call this the parent object, and everything inside of it is a child object. So you can collapse the parent object, and then you won't see the child object, and that's one way you can quickly clean up your scene a little bit. So I'm going to do that for the other objects as well. I'm going to call this one boundaries. Also, I reset the position. I'm going to put all 4 of the boundaries into this parent object. Again, parent object, and these are the child objects inside this parent object. Now the cool thing about using parenting, right, which is basically creating a parent object and putting these child objects in them, is look at this. When I click and select the parent object, all the child objects are selected. So you can do cool things like if you move the position of the parent object, it moves everything inside of it. Right, so it moves all the child objects inside of this parent object. When you rotate it, you can see that it's rotating the entire group. Instead of, let's say, if I just click on one, we'll just rotate that one. And even if I click on all of them, if I have local selected, it's going to rotate. Never mind. They don't rotate individually, but if you click on just one of them or any one of them, then they are going to rotate differently. But if you group them together under a parent object, you can manipulate them all at the same time. Now this is important down the line when you have complex objects that requires different components and different sort of ways to manipulate it, and you might want to start using that mechanism, the child and parenting mechanism. We're not using that just yet, so we'll leave that for another topic. But for now, just understand that you can create parent objects to group your child objects together, so you clean up the scene. So that's the first benefit. And the second benefit is you can manipulate them all together, right? So I can rotate this entire scene all together. Now imagine if you have a interaction that changes everything inside this. Let's say if you have an interaction where it shakes this group bars object, this parent object, then it will shake the entire thing, and you can create some sort of pretty cool effect like that. Right, so that's parenting. Okay, so we've done that. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to have a bit of color for these bars, and I want them to be randomized. Right, so let's go back to the prefabs. Right, and then we click on the bar prefab, and again, let's go to Playmaker. Sometimes it doesn't show up. Just click on Edit, and it should show up. Okay, make sure this is the prefab. Okay, so right now it's just there's an idle state, collision enter, and then it destroys self. Right, so I'm going to change this to destroy just so that it's a bit more self-explanatory. Now I want to make it so that whenever the game starts, it will go and pick one of the few colors that I've defined, so that each one of them can have a different color, or some of them will have the same color, but they won't all look the same. So I'm going to add a new state, and I'm going to call this initialization. Right. And I want this to be the first state. Right. So set as start state. So when the game starts, it's going to come here first, and we're going to do a few actions in it, and then afterwards, when it finishes, we go to the idle state. Okay, action browser. See what we can do with color, right? So there is an action called set random color. So that's great. That's what this will do is it will set a random color to your object. Right, so let's drag that in, and you need to store this color somewhere, right? So basically it would pick one of the three, or however many colors you want, and store it in a color variable. Right, so we need to first create a variable for the color, so we're just going to say bar color, right? So that's going to be our color variable. Okay, I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So let's say we want 5 different colors to choose from, and here you can just select different colors. All right, you can just do that. Just going to pick a few random ones. Okay, now make sure the weight is the same, so make them all 1, so that would give them an equal chance to be picked. If you click on the help button again, it will explain to you what that does. It's always good to review this, so you can see the relative weight of this color for the weight, right? So that's good. And then we're going to store color into this color variable. All right, so that's good. Now let's just quickly play and see what this means, right? What this does. Hit play. It's going to take a bit of time. Okay, now let's pause it for a second. Open up the bar group and just select. Let's select the first bar, and let's check the variable. Now, in the first bar, the variable, the color variable, the bar color variable has the color red. And let's see, the second one has the color yellow. The third one, red again. Fourth one, yellow again. Fifth one is the purplish color. So we can see that now this color variable is different for each bar, just as we want it, right? So when it's initialized, in the initialization state, we pick a color, put that color in the color variable, right? That variable, that container we talked about. Okay, great. Now, I don't just want to pick a color, I actually want to change the look in the game. So let's go back to materials. Sorry, go back to action browser, and what I want to do is set material color, and great, it's right here. Or if you don't use search, you can go to material, set material color. Right, so we're going to drag this in here. Make sure that we do that after the color is selected. Right, I'm going to collapse this. And user owner, we're going to change. Oh, and I just made a mistake here. Let's back up a bit. Now, see that I'm making changes to this object, which is not good because none of the other ones will have the change I've just made. See, it doesn't have the event. So I'm going to back off. Actually, I'm going to revert, which means I'm going to revert this object back to the prefab. So it will be exactly like what the prefab is. Revert, and you can see that now it's removed that action that I've just added. Right, so they're now all the same again. Make sure we go back to the project, click on the prefab, and make changes to this one. Or if you're in Playmaker, click on prefab instance and click on select prefab. Now we're working with the prefab here. Okay, now again, action browser, material, set material color. I'm going to put it down here. Okay, and user owner, we're going to change the color of this particular object itself. And don't worry about these for now. And the named color, instead of choosing a color here, we're going to use the color variable. So it's going to set the color as the color that was picked from here, right? Okay, that should work. Save, and let's try that. Okay, so you can see that now we have different colors on our object, and every time the game resets, it's going to give you a different color. Right, so every time we restart the game, since it's randomized, you have a chance of 1 in 5 chance of getting a different color, right? So 5 different colors to choose from. Not the most amazing color palette, but you get the idea. So that's kind of fun. Save again. What's the next thing we can do? We can add some sound effects, right? So we've used sound effects before. So let's try that again. I think that would be pretty fun.